Good morning, everybody. I'm Francesco Cerchiaro, FWO Senior Fellow at KU Leuven, and today I would like to introduce you to a piece of my research focused on mixed families association in the public sphere. In particular, I would like to focus on the role of the researcher in gathering these kind of data, so in doing ethnography with families, and in particular with family activism. So just to give you a quick overview, the findings analyzed today draw on data collected in the last four or 5 years. So the last two research project Marie Curie Fellowship, done in Leuven between 2018 and 2020, and my current FAO project, always in Leuven, namely Fighting for Love, Mixed Families Association in Belgium, France, and Italy. But let me take a step back. What do we study precisely when we study mixed families? In this picture, you can see how most of the study so far mainly focused on the consequences of a mixed marriage for the family members. Scholars investigate how partners cope with their different religious background, what kind of gender implication these marriages imply. In other terms, what does it change if the migrant partner is the man or the woman? Again, what kind of identities do the offspring of these families developed, and how family members cope with the different stigmatization that they experience in their everyday life. So we can see that basically all these topics refer to the consequence of a mixed marriage for the family members. What I'm trying to do with my current research, with my most recent research, is to look at the other way around. So not at mixed families as a passive output of a social process of social change, but how they actively are agent of social change. More concretely, how do they overcome the social stigmatization that they experience? How do they act to put pressure on religious institutions that limit, above all for partners who socialized to different religions, that limit their possibilities to intermarry? And again, how these families try to counter the legislative and administrative obstacles that impede their relationship. To counter these obstacles, often mixed families seek for the help of mixed families association that were still not taken into account by scholars, and that's precisely what I am doing in these last years, to focus on the role of this association as advocate for these mixed couples, as agent of social change themselves. But these requires the scholar to invert the perspective, to look at these families not in their family dimension, not just interviewing them about the family relationship, but about the way they are coping with these problems, these obstacles in the public sphere. And this is part of this cosmos of association that we can find in Belgium, France, and Italy, and that I am studying themselves. So basically, my data and methods, just to give you a quick overview, crosses three different societal levels. The micro level at of the family, so to interview the partners and to gather their own perspective, their own experience. To look at these association as a sort of social movement who act at the meso level, between the micro level of the family and the macro level of the institution, and connect the two levels. and the institution. So I both interviewed family members. I do ethnography following the activities of this association and looking at how they connect the family with the institutions. I would be run on this point, but we can maybe come back on it later, discussing this topic together at the conference. But I particularly look at the concept of family display. So family relationship, not only as something that needs to be done, but also something that needs to be displayed. So whether the circumstances, the core message that in a way explain the concept of a display family is, this is my family relationship and they work. I've tried to study these couples, not just in their everyday family life, but also in their multifaceted activism in the public sphere through these new social movements that they join and they try, and through which they try to activate different processes of social change. An example of my study is the Association of Christian Muslim Families, GEFIC, Le Foyer Islamo-Chrétien de France-Belgique, who act at a transnational level, both in Belgium and in France, offering support to Christian Muslim families in France and Belgium. What I found is that this association in particular aims to support the partners in dealing with the religious difference. And the result that I have found is that this association is mainly focused on the family dimension, and it does not do much to put pressure on religious institutions, even if they are trying to connect different leaders from the Catholic world and Islamic world. Basically, what they are trying to do is through programs that I follow, to a day dedicated to spirituality, to finding a new spiritual way to help the couples to develop a new spirituality beyond the dogmas imposed by the religious institution, who for the couples, for the partners, are much more focused on what differentiate the two religions, while the activities of this association try to focus on what is the spiritual milieu, what the two religions share. And in doing this, they are precisely trying to build up a new kind of spirituality, who counter the idea that the two religions needs to be divided and incompatible. Another example of association is Amour Vos Papiers in Belgium, which is much more focused on all the legal and administrative obstacles that binational couples, above all couples characterized by a European partner and a non-European partner, has to face in the Belgian legislation. To do this, I had to follow the demonstration of these families. And what they ask the researcher is particularly to be engaged, to participate with them. They explicitly asked me, if you want to study us, you have to be part of us. And so I think that the most important thing is to find a balance as a researcher between engagement and distanciation. Here we can see some examples of activities that I have studied, and I didn't find a lot of literature on it, because usually these particular kind of social movements are not studied at all, but they are relevant actors who are trying to put pressure on institution with the main argument of love is not a state privilege. So this is an example of demonstration in Brussels. Nella Son pas l'amour devenir un privilège, do not allow love to be privilege. And in this way, through this slogan that we can also see in the posters, these associations are publicly using love as a vehicle to counter the idea that the state can limit the relationship of two persons. But this is something that touch everyone's, and also the researcher cannot take a step back and simply observe this. To the researcher, it is asked to be part of the demonstration. So I think there are most of the discussion in the literature who are mainly focused on how to acquire richer data are in a way misleading, because the real question is not in which way a scholar can acquire richer data, but to which data we can have access through our qualitative methods like interviews and ethnography. So in this quite meaningful and beautiful picture that I took during one of these meetings, I think that it's kind of an emblematic picture about the role of the researcher. All these partners are linked with shared wires who tied the different participants, and the researcher, me in this case, is part of this connection with the wires. And that's precisely the equilibrium, the balance that a scholar need to find between being engaged, being part of these wires, but also to take a distance and being able to interview and observe and take notes of these forms of activism in a scientific way. And this is a kind of an example. I was asked to wear one of these slogans hanged on my neck, and I ended up in a shot of these TV news about the activities of this association, and I had to develop my reflexivity on my involvement, but also on my role as a researcher. And just to make some final remarks, I found it that there was need to, in a way, innovate existing methodology as for the study of mixed families, in particular family activism. To combine, in particular, individual and joint interviews to help gathering different kind of narratives about how the couples try to be active. And in this way, to combine individual and joint interviews can allow the scholar to have different perspectives and to build up different relationships, both individually with the partners and collectively with the couple and with more than one couple. But also there is an issue about the missing data, the data we used to hide from our qualitative reports. And these are precisely the difficulties, the obstacles, all these positionality about the researcher in gaining the trust to assess the fieldwork. What I found is that it is important to include refusal, ethnographic notes about the obstacles, about the process of finding a balance between engagement and distanciation. And I think that these are the most important elements on which I wanted to reflect. So time is running out, and I thank you very much for your attention. And I am looking forward to meet you online and discuss with you my research. Thanks a lot.